Well, we've got a storm brewing out there. Tropical Storm Nicholas is out there doing its thing right now, forming up and getting ready to make landfall tomorrow evening. I think we're expected to get quite a bit of rain and maybe even some wind out of this thing. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. We are in the garage again this weekend. Working on the boat a little bit. I've got a little bit that I can do on this, but really the next step is going to be painting it. But before I paint it, let me show you what I've got to do. I've got to drill the holes for my screws to mount this grab rail. I want to get those pilot holes drilled before I paint it so that the paint doesn't delaminate when I go to drill through it. But I can't drill the holes until I know exactly where I want this grab rail to go. And I can't know exactly where I want the grab rail to go until I have my tiller extension for my motor. I want to actually put the motor on the boat and then hook up my tiller extension and stand on the boat and see exactly where this thing should go based on the length of that tiller extension and what's comfortable for me. And then the other thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and drill my pilot holes for my hatch. And once I know where that grab rail is going to go, I'll be able to take my marine mat kit here and go ahead and lay out the plastic and create the templates for cutting out my marine mat deck foam. But it's really starting to come together now. It's starting to look like a little micro skiff finally. So last week, my wife Kelsi, who y'all have seen on the show a time or two, she received a little bit of scary medical news. She had a spot right on her collarbone here that was kind of starting to change colors and do some funny things, so she went into the dermatologist. They ended up removing the spot and sending it in to get tested, and the results came back positive for melanoma. So you can imagine we were both pretty shocked by that news. Kelsi is 28 years old. She's very young. She never goes to the tanning bed. She's always good about, covering up in the sun and protecting her skin, wearing sunscreen. Melanoma doesn't run in her family. So it was all just kind of a shock when we found out that news. Luckily, it was caught very early. I guess it's technically stage 0 melanoma. It's so superficial that they don't even give it a stage. So the doctors seemed pretty confident that they'll be able to go in there and remove a bigger piece of skin around the spot and confidently get all that out of there. Which is a reminder to all of y'all out there, especially if you're out in the sun frequently, go get your yearly exams. Go get checked out. Dermatologists are easy to forget about. It's one that I certainly don't think about, or at least I didn't. But it's really important that you go get checked out, especially if you're an angler that spends a lot of time out in the sun. It was pretty wild though. We went back through her Facebook pictures and we went so far back that we found where the little spot on her collarbone didn't even exist, and it was actually about 6 years ago. So from 6 years ago to now, we could go through those pictures and watch that little spot appear and then get darker and darker and darker. And it was pretty wild to see that progression. But thank God it was caught early. It shouldn't be too big of a deal, just a quick outpatient surgery and should be good to go. So if you think about it, say a few extra prayers for her next week as we get this surgery scheduled and taken care of. So with that said, I thought it would be a good idea to do a video this week on what I do to protect myself from the sun when I'm out fishing, and then things that I plan to start doing to protect myself even further. So the first thing that I did is I went out and I bought myself a big goofy hat. It's a big enough hat that it provides a certain level of shade to my neck, to my ears, to my face, especially when that sun gets higher up in the sky. And of course, it offers complete coverage on my scalp, where everyone is prone to getting skin cancer. Next thing that I always wear are a good pair of sunglasses. Get yourself a nice pair that has 100% UV protection. Of course, they're often a little more expensive, but it is an investment that is well worth it considering you only have one set of eyes. So I like to wear Costas. Not only do they offer complete protection from the sun, but they also offer an anti-glare component that makes fishing so much more productive. The next thing that I always have with me is this ragged beard here. You know, I don't wear it just because it makes me look good. No, believe it or not, they've done studies on beards, and they've found that it can reduce the UV rays that make it to the skin underneath your beard anywhere from 50 to 95%. So that's pretty dang good natural protection. Of course, you don't want to rely on it solely. You really want to rub some sunscreen in there as well to help protect underneath there. But it has been proven that beards will help keep your face safe from skin cancer. I always have on a long sleeve shirt when I'm out fishing. I really like the Huck style shirts. I believe those offer 30 to 50 UPF sun protection. So those are really good at preventing the sun's rays from reaching your skin underneath the shirts. And now for the things that I haven't been wearing, but I'm going to start wearing. The big one that's most obvious is sunscreen, guys. You know, usually I'll put on everything I just talked about, but I won't put on sunscreen. I'll be honest, I don't like it. I don't know too many people that do like sunscreen. But also, it's one of those things, once I have it on, I kind of forget about it, and it doesn't really bother me until I sweat and it runs in my eyes. But I can deal with that because that is better than the risk of getting skin cancer. So sunscreen on any exposed skin. So I always need to put it on my entire face, the tops of my ears, and probably the back of my neck. Okay, and lastly, y'all, I need to get myself a good pair of gloves to cover up my hands. Especially if I'm kayaking. You know, when you're paddling, that top part of your hand is always just extremely exposed to the sunlight. So a good pair of gloves that maybe have the fingers cut out so I can still tie knots and cast and everything like that, that would be a very good thing for me to start wearing. Well, I hope some of y'all got some kind of information out of this. I think the big takeaway is go to the dermatologist, get your yearly exam, and don't underestimate the sun's ability to do real harm on your skin, even if you're young. You know, I'm talking to you young guys now. I'm 31 years old, and it wasn't until this scare with my wife that I really started to take it seriously, because I used to be the guy that was out there and no protection at all. In fact, I kind of liked to get a good base sunburn at the first of summer and then allow myself to just tan from there. And that's not smart. That's not a good way to do it. If that's the way you're doing things right now, it will catch up to you. And it could catch up to you sooner rather than later. This may not be a thing that catches up to you when you're 50 or 60 years old. My wife is 28. She's very young, and this has already gotten her. So keep that in mind, everyone. Y'all be sure to keep an eye out for my next videos. We are actually leaving for Colorado on Thursday. So the next 2 or so will be videos of me up there trout fishing in the river and enjoying this awesome vacation with my family. So keep an eye out for that. You all have a wonderful week. Please keep my wife, Kelsi, in your prayers, and I will see y'all next Tuesday.